Bingo! We're back. Second hour. Freedom Forum 2. How much trouble can we get in this hour?
You really want to know? I can take care of that for you.
Here's a little item that was sent to me in a text. It said to emphasize that the drainage part is merely a bait and switch item because it would not pass otherwise, and that they are preying on the emotions of the people by putting the drainage issue into the amendment. And that's a very good point. That's how they do things. Don't matter whether it's this thing or what it is. Look at the school thing. Remember the school thing? They came to our, I remember that. They came with all these pictures of the destroyed trailers that they didn't keep up. And oh my God, we got to, I mean, I live right behind one of the schools. I used to know when school was going to start. Because you know what? There would be a truck pulling in with a trailer. There would be a truck pulling in, putting a new trailer in. And speaking of that, if they'd have bought those, we wouldn't have a lot of money in our account instead of leasing them every year.
And why did they lease them? Because somebody was making all that moolah.
But that's a very good point about the bait and switch and using the drainage thing. But you know what? Several people commented on that drainage thing. What do you mean? You didn't do anything. You cleaned out the ditches. I know for a fact in my stepson's area, they knew where the problem was and why the water backed up. And it was where the where the builder, which was his responsibility, put the thing under but didn't line it up. And so they brought, and Dalford did a good job on Channel 10, showed where the water was on this side, and guess what? There was no water on the other side. And so
proper drainage.
So when the city came out, they said it was the responsibility of the homeowner
Well, of course, pass
to
the
fix
buck.
it. Which is true. I talked to a lawyer, you know who, and he told me that is true.
He who shall not be named.
He shall not be named. The thing is that it should go back to the builder because he didn't do it right. But the builder says, and so the poor homeowner is stuck. And the rest of the subdivision floods. But we're going to get more drainage money. And
Famous last words.
what do you got interesting over there? I mean, I have a neat thing on Mitch Landrieu, but
I have all sorts of things here. I've got this one here that's pretty interesting. Y'all know that we have a mayoral election that's in New Orleans.
Cool.
Now, this particular thing here is the New Orleans City Council credit cards charged more than $400,000. Meals, trips, purchases at stationery stores, newly released records. Council members used that to buy office supplies, picture frames, airfare, groceries, cab fare. Councilwoman LaToya Cantrell and
who
her
is the
staff
leading candidate, by the way.
tallied up $207,000 in charges. And the records show that 3 council members only reimbursed a combined $10,000 to the city over the same period. Most of that $8,000 came from Cantrell and her political campaign, earning her criticism. So it just gets better and better.
Yeah, the 2 primary candidates, they both communists.
They
I'm not supposed to say
have
that.
hundreds of pages of credit card receipts, and the Times-Picayune continues to go through this. Former Judge Desiree Charbonnet accused Cantrell.
Oh, God, that's just as bad as the 2.
Oh, yes.
Wasn't she a candidate?
Oh, yes, she is. And the district attorney, Leon Canizaro, has endorsed Charbonnet, has said he forwarded to the state attorney general, oops, that Jeff Landry word, oops, a criminal complaint about Cantrell's use of the credit card.
Well, we know nothing will happen there.
Yes. Yes. Now, legislative auditor
Trouble again.
revealed that he will examine the city council members' use of credit cards.
Really?
But So what?
17 months and they haven't taken care of a rape thing. Let's stay in New Orleans.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got a good thing here.
Bring a gun if you do.
Batiste. Mitchell Andrew honors New Orleans slave owners. Talk about a hypocrite.
Well, it's Uncle Mitch's plantation, so why not? He the plantation man.
Frank Stewart, I've met this guy, very wealthy guy. Good guy, really good guy. He ran full-page ads during the monument thing. He had buku money. Frank Stewart called out Mitchell Andrews' hypocrisy again. The retired businessman launched several paid newspaper ads attacking his one-time friend as Mitch removed the 4 monuments earlier this year. Stewart wrote a new letter to the editor published by The Advocate in which he highlighted Mitch's inconsistencies. New Orleans Mayor Mitchell Andrew is spending many taxpayer dollars and a lot of contributed capital in restoring and improving Gallier Hall, our old city hall for many years, for the tricentennial celebration. Gallier Hall was built by slaves under James Gallier,
No!
who owned 2 slaves personally, along with his wife, who owned 2 slaves.
My.
How hypocritical is it to restore such a monument for the tricentennial, which is considered an icon, and then tear down other monuments because you deem them to be a symbol of slavery, discrimination, segregation, and not honoring the individuals for whom the monument is named? The monuments honor great leaders in history who felt slavery was evil and worked to end it. Robert E. Lee picture was prominently displayed in the Oval Office, and many of the past presidents felt he was one of the greatest citizens in our history. What a hypocrite, Mitch Landrieu.
Well, you see, Jim, it's more than hypocrisy. Mitch Landrieu is actually a white supremacist because little Mitch is part black and he hates that part of his history. So his family on their census changed from black to white many decades ago, and he tries to hide that fact.
Oh, yeah. So Restoration Stewart references is a $15 million project to
My.
beautify Gallier Hall.
Isn't that nice?
Mitch originally announced this project a week before he announced his plans to remove 4 Confederate monuments. Mitch Landrieu concluded his desecration of New Orleans history with a celebration at Gallier Hall on May 19th.
Celebrating slavery.
Celebrated it in
The
the
irony
hall.
of his speech after the reason was that Gallier Hall was complicit in the slave trade in New Orleans.
Do you think that little Mitch will bring some cotton to put around the hall to make it feel like the ode to yesteryear? A little cotton, you know, little.
One of his notable projects was the Merchants Exchange in New Orleans. Gallier's building was used as a slave auction house even after the Civil War began. Mitchell Andrew held his victory lap in a building named for a man who heavily contributed to sustaining the slave trade in New Orleans. Not only that, Gallier owned slaves himself. When Jefferson Davis died in New Orleans in 1891, his body was laid in state at Gallier Hall and was the biggest funeral in the city's history. When G.T. Beauregard died in 1893, the little Napoleon was laid in state at Gallier Hall. In 2015, when Mitch was laid, that's not I'm sorry.
Well, you could have been correct. He might have been laid there. We don't know.
June,
We don't know.
yeah, with baby girl.
Yeah, with his mistress, we don't know where exactly conception occurred.
Hey, these things that just pop into my head. June 2015,
Which
Mitch
I'm a bad
said,
influence.
Gallier Hall, Gallier Hall is a monument to all that we have achieved as a city, and preserving it is an important task to not only pay homage to those that came before, but the generations that followed.
So he wants to get rid of Confederate monuments, but wants to honor and keep the slave hall where they were actually sold.
Yes,
Do you
sir.
know what that sounds like? That sounds like good Democrat hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Aside from the major Gallier Hall restoration, Landrieu has other efforts to memorialize the names of New Orleans slavers. Mitch spent $9.1 million on the Lafayette Greenway, a bike path named for the famous pirate who ran slaves.
Jean Lafitte.
This is itself hoists the most well-known slaver in New Orleans history up on a pedestal for all the hipsters and the alt-left who bike around town.
But Jim, they were good Democrats.
Each time they use the Lafayette Greenway, they are honoring slavery. Mitch will have spent $25 million of city and state taxpayer funds on 2 projects named for slavers. Mitch said the Confederacy was on the wrong side of humanity.
Really?
But
Yeah, hypocrite, extraordinaire, Mitch Landrieu cemented, oh, I thought they said he was cemented.
No, that's his company for, isn't that his cousin's
Oh, yeah,
company?
that's right, his
That's his cousin's company.
cousin. Oh, yeah.
They're cementing all of
Mitch
the
Landrieu
city.
cemented and concreted the names of New Orleans slave owners, slave traders, and slave trade advocates into the history book for the tricentennial. By the standards he applied in justifying the destruction of New Orleans landmarks, Mitch Landrieu actions revere slave owners. There is no other way to put it.
The hypocrisy is just
It's
in
just
your
sad.
face hypocrisy.
just sad.
In your face.
It's,
You can't make this stuff up.
you know, I mean, can you imagine us going to Arizona?
Well, I used to live there, so
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
It's
you
quite
did.
a drive.
Really have
Yes.
fun. We can have some fun.
Yes, I actually chased people there and told them press hard, 4 copies, please.
I mean, you read stuff like that. We can't make this up. That came from the hayride, by the way. Some people would say, "Oh, the hayride."
Little Mitch.
I mean, you know, I'm
You know,
surprised.
Jim-
I'm surprised he hasn't had any concrete shoes.
But you know, Jim, the fact it might be Cantrell or Charbonnet who comes in after him, nobody can be as crooked as Mitch.
Oh,
They're going to have to work at it.
That's not what I heard.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you put Mitch in context with all the stuff that Katrina Murray did,
Oh.
all the stuff that Mitch did, all the crooked stuff his family has done. I mean, they're as bad as the Clintons. They are a multi-generational crime family that Rudy Giuliani would have gone after as mobsters.
Oh, Giuliani just said about the charges that should be brought up on Hillary. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep, the Hildy Beast needs to go.
see, we're educating
Hopefully.
Butch on Louisiana.
Hopefully.
Oh, Louisiana
Why
politics.
would you want to? I wonder how the population is dropping in New Orleans. Now, oh, the other big deal. The new 2,000 job DXC company. That's a big deal with you know who. Our favorite governor.
Dumbbell Edwards,
I knew he was
king
gonna
of the rotten Democrat.
I just knew he was coming. Oh, here he is. John Bell Edwards' big announcement today is he's giving away, in a state that's broke, $120 million in corporate welfare. Updated, $44 million, okay?
I like that first number better.
Well, they redid it. Baton Rouge Business Report puts a number at 44 million. It doesn't matter. We discussed this before about these situations. You know, it's like the city of Lafayette. Let's go back to them. They want more tax money from us, right?
They want to dig
But
in our
yet we have a
wallets.
whole complex with all these new businesses in Costco and all them who are what? Tax-free.
Funny, huh?
But you're coming to retired Jim and saying, we need more of your tax money. And I'm going, I don't have any more. In order to attract Virginia-based DXC technology, New Orleans, where it will open a digital transformation center in the heart of the Central Business District, the state put together, an incentive, that's what this stuff's boring, incentive package worth more than $44 million in grants, workforce training, and investments in higher education, computer science, and engineering programs. When I read this the first time, I'm like, whoa. In return, the publicly traded tech giant, which has revenues, are you ready for this, of $25 billion.
They really need our
Need
part
that
of the
really
tax
needed
break,
that
don't they?
help.
Need that tax break.
And more than 6,000 private and public sector clients in
Yes, sir.
70 countries.
How much is our state budget
Not as much as their,
revenue?
29 billion, something like
Jim.
that.
Jim, the question that needs to be answered is how much did Dumbbell get as a kickback for giving them?
No, there ain't none of that stuff ever takes place. You know that.
What if a state trooper was involved?
Yeah.
Well, they're up to their eyeballs in crooked lace and parties and everything. Here we go. Give it about 5 minutes, folks. We'll be back on state police.
DXC selection in New Orleans represents, in the promise to create 2,000 permanent jobs over the next 7 years.
That's theoretical.
Yeah.
Promises. We know about promises. With an annual payroll exceeding 133 million by 2025. DXC selection in New Orleans represents the rarest and most promising economic development win that Louisiana or state could hope for. Now, let's look at that. The Mercedes-Benz, which is the stadium,
Oh, that's a sore
is called,
subject.
paid $50 to $60 million. Who got that money?
Saints.
Saints.
Not us. Not
Not
the
us.
people. Not the people who own the property. The
Right.
Saints.
So now we're having a $1.3 billion deficit next July,
what they claim.
what they claim, and we just gave away $44 million.
See, that's where the problem I have with Dumbbell's numbers. He keeps saying that we got this big deficit, yet he keeps giving away money.
Well, here now, they gave away $44 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
While New Orleans is the big winner in the deal, the benefits will ripple throughout the state.
I'm afraid of those ripples. I might need some Digel.
Yeah. According to a recent economic impact study by LSU, the company will generate $64.3 million in new state taxes. Wait a minute. $868.4 million in new Louisiana earnings, and have a total economic output of $3.2 billion from 2018 through 2025.
Yet they need corporate welfare.
I mean,
It just don't stop, Jim. It just don't.
numbers, always numbers. A $2.2 million parking assistance grant. These are what they did. In addition to the $25 million investment in higher ed, the state's incentive package includes $18.7 million in performance, here we go again,
Yep.
performance-based grants.
Ooh, we got
Now, where
liberal
did this
stuff.
grant come from?
Communism.
Payable to the company over 5 years. Payable to the
Company.
not us, the company. Over 5 years, including a $15 million flexible performance-based grant. You can't make this stuff up.
Keep digging, Louisiana. Keep digging.
$2.2 million parking assistance grant.
What is parking assistance? Are they paying little guys in funny suits to park your car?
Now here's the one I like.
Yeah.
A $1.5 million demolition grant. What are we
In
destroying?
case something goes wrong.
DXC will also receive
Blows up the
workforce
evidence.
training assistance. So it's about $19 million in more or less direct incentives to DXC and $25 million in essential workforce training, which comes out to $44 million. We reported on the Saint stuff, and there's a whole lot more in here, but do you get the point? We're giving away stuff. Costco, you think they needed a 10-year tax break?
That was very interesting that whole block over there got that on the property taxes and on the improvement of the property taxes. Yet the city came with their hand out wanting more from us.
Yes.
I mean,
They do the same thing in Arizona.
Same thing?
Same thing, all these big
What was that
grants.
school thing in Arizona, or that land grant thing or something they went into? There's a pile of money?
Yes, the.
This is good.
The government raided the Federal Land Trust and took millions and millions and millions of dollars out. That was supposed to go to education. It was supposed to go directly to the classrooms. And all of this money that was taken out, it went to referendum and it did pass, even though our great state treasurer, Mr. DeWitt, said, no, don't take that money out because you're going to have issues. They decided under Governor Ducey to take the money out anyway. The referendum passed. They took all these millions of dollars out, and the teachers that I've talked to can't testify that any teacher has gotten more than a 2% pay raise, which is what they normally get from the federal government every year anyway.
From the fund.
From the fund. That money never made it to the classrooms again. You know why? Because all of that money went to the school boards, and the school boards had no accountability. They didn't have to say what they spent the money on. Nobody tracked the money.
Big raises.
Money just went. Well, I can tell you this, the teachers didn't get it. That's for daggone sure.
School boards.
And the kids in the classroom never got it.
School boards, I think we can extrapolate from this state, are always
school boards.
top heavy.
Yes.
We got a guy
Yes.
that gets hundred thousands of dollars for to be the head of the school board here, the good superintendent, and he's got this huge car allowance,
20 grand.
20 grand a year.
Yes. Yes.
Lafayette Parish
What's your
ain't that
car allowance?
big.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
$20,000.
$20,000.
That's a new vehicle every year.
Yes.
To
Yep.
go from school to school if he
Yes.
chooses to go.
Yeah, but
Yes.
he had somebody drive him, I heard the other day.
Well, he
Somebody
keeps
told
the
me.
car at home.
Keeps the car at home, but
Is
he
that like
drives
driving
it.
Miss Daisy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
I wonder if Morgan Freeman
Yeah.
has a little suit that he drives him around in.
It's like,
Well, I bet you if you go talk to the teachers in the great state of Louisiana, they'll tell you that they're still taking money out of their own pockets to buy notebooks and pencils
Always
for kids
have.
that
Oh, yeah.
don't have them.
Always
While
have.
he's driving around in $20,000 a year, yeah.
yeah, but now I like, Justin Centani, I'm still waiting for him to reply. Interesting, huh? Yes.
Funny how he had those documents going to prove us wrong, and he's never called back,
Never called back, kind of like the Ethics Commission, eh?
or lack of.
No, what was the one I called?
Yeah, the state troopers
Civil,
and
yeah.
complained to the Ethics Commission because they were using, they were helping
We're
to campaign for
celebrating
gun
an
down.
anniversary this month.
Oh, yeah.
2 years since I called them.
What do you have now on the troopers?
Well, when they did the campaign contributions thing, is State Police Commission reopening its investigation of those State Trooper Association campaign contributions.
Which is all patently illegal under civil service
To make a
rules.
long story short here, we have yet to see anybody go to jail for doing all this crap.
Well, if we
All
had
the way
a,
down in the State Trooper line.
yeah, if we actually had an AG who was actually doing a job, maybe somebody might get indicted, but it seems like if you're a state trooper, you can do pretty much whatever you want and you won't get charged with anything. That's why I went on Facebook. State police is the agency that's investigating the shooting in Baton Rouge, where the Baton Rouge city cop went with the DCFS social worker to investigate child abuse, and they had to shoot the fool they were investigating. I had to go on Facebook and quote Magistrate Patrick Hanna. They're untrustworthy. How can we rely on them to honestly investigate this when evidence was mishandled in the Victor White case?
Here's the deal. We heard, is it at least a year, about the 17 federal indictments?
Grand jury subpoenas
Yeah,
that we've never heard anything back on.
never heard another word. We had the guy that was the head of it, made a six-figure income, got a six-figure income for retirement, and then got a six-figure income for a job.
Who falsified public records, who illegally paid overtime. I mean, we just can go down the list.
I mean, you know, nothing serious that he did, you know.
You know, we're going to have to start referring to those boys as the Teflon turds because nothing ever sticks.
Nothing sticks.
Nothing. I mean, they can do whatever they want.
Well,
They can falsify their timesheets on the LACE program. They can be at the house sleeping while they're supposed to be working. We're just going to suspend the program for a little while.
on that.
Let me ask you guys a question on the Baton Rouge thing.
Okay.
Did you ever hear or read of any other stories where child services was involved with a 24-year-old adult?
Well, we don't know the full story,
Okay.
but it sounds like the 24-year-old was the abuser and was part of the investigation.
Okay.
And they went there and he was uncooperative and wanted to be violent. The taser was used.
Yes.
And then whatever happened further, he
Yes.
became a threat and the officer had to employ his sidearm.
Okay.
But my question with the investigation is, given the lack of honesty in the Victor White case, let me refresh
Yes.
the public's memory. A person alleged, I believe the name was Tracy Smith, evidence custodian from the Criminal Investigative Department of the State Police, sent a report to District Attorney in New Iberia, Bo Dewey, stating that she swabbed the dead Victor White's hands, bagged his hands for future evidence, and swabbed others' hands on the scene, which, if it had been done properly, would have either implicated someone or cleared someone. Well, then, she is then deposed by the family defense attorney, and deposition means you're putting your hand on the Bible and swearing to tell the truth, just like you're in court.
Yes, sir.
She said she went straight to the hospital and none of that ever happened.
I see.
So either way, she either lied to the district attorney or lied under oath. But the implication of this is all of the previous cases that the state police has done any type of criminalistic work, DNA, blood draws, DWI, any type of fingerprint evidence, all of that for maybe 10 years back is now subject to being said was a lie. And if the
Wow.
defense attorneys are smart, for people who've had their cases, evidence, Jim, go to the state police lab, they need to bring that up because that was the opinion of a U.S. magistrate.
Wow.
Whew.
Just gets
Yeah.
better and better.
Mm.
What you got, Mark Levin?
Yes, folks, unless y'all have been hiding under a rock, folks, Judge Roy Moore is under attack.
Who's that?
He is the conservative judge that is running for Jeff Sessions' Senate seat in Alabama.
I just thought I'd clear that.
Who has had every type of smear manufactured. The only thing is he did not father a child with Chelsea Clinton. That's next. Next thing you'll know,
ago, my
Jim, the next thing you know, he's going to be having been accused of raping Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah.
40 years ago?
At least. At least.
I'm
So,
sorry.
Mark Levin, the conservative radio host, has basically gone and dug into it. And this is all a complete fabrication. Now, it's pretty interesting that if you just look at the surface of this thing, the first problem with all of this is Roy Moore has been in politics for 40 years. And he is one of the most heavily scrutinized candidates in history because he was the judge who got kicked out for having the 10 Commandments in his courtroom, then got elected to, I believe, was a court of appeal, and throughout that process was heavily scrutinized, and none of this ever occurred or surfaced prior to this 30 days within the election.
Yes,
now,
sir.
let's get more interesting. It gets even more interesting when the yearbook that was supposed to have been turned in as evidence shows that signatures where Roy supposedly signed a yearbook was in different ink, and there are 17 different conflicts with that piece of evidence. Not only the fact that the signature was not Roy Moore's. Then we have another darling jewel who accused Roy, who said that Roy would call her on her phone in her bedroom.
Stepson.
And her
She's
mother came out in an interview and let it slip. Oh, my daughter didn't have a phone in her room when she was younger. Really? Really. Then we have one right here that one of the accusers, Deborah Wesson Gibson, aka Debbie Gibson, is a fervent supporter of Jones and the Democrats, and she is a sign language interpreter who has been interpreting at rallies for Groper Joe, Uncle Joe the Groper, and the Hildebeest. And it just gets better and better. And here's, folks, I don't know if you can see that. That's an actually picture of her at the Hildebeest rally waving her hands around in the air. And she also has ads here where she has endorsed Joe the Groper. And here is a picture of her with Joe the Groper. She's lucky she's not again. Well, I can't see Joe's hands.
Yeah, wherever his other hand is.
Yeah, I can't see where his hands are. You know, I hope he washed his hands. Good Lord. I hope she takes a shower after this. This is just terrible. I mean, good Lord.
Uncle Joe.
Oh, my God.
But the big thing about this is that Roy Moore is a conservative Christian. He is an honest, God-fearing man. He will do a good job. Mitch McConnell cannot have this guy in the Senate.
Right.
He can't be bought. He can't be corrupted. And if he gets in, he will have the bully pulpit to expose what they do. He cannot be put in there. So, folks, that is why we are supporting Roy Moore and praying for Roy, because he's the only guy that can get in there.
This is the whole Saul Alinsky method of doing things.
Yep.
And the most interesting thing about this, folks, if we look at the very first race where he went up against fellow Republican in the primary, Luther Strange, Mitch McConnell and Trump backed Strange.
Exactly
So what
right.
this really is a proxy fight with Steve Bannon, who is backing true conservatives, draining the swamp and getting rid of the rhinos, and Mitch McConnell on the other side, who wants the status quo with the bribes, the lobbying money, the status quo of the swamp.
You got it.
So, folks, everybody needs to pray for Roy Moore to win, because all of these allegations are falsified. And the big nail in the accuser coffin is when actually Gloria Allred trotted her lying California lawyer behind out.
Yep.
That was a
Yep.
red flag.
And
Yes.
folks, if you will recall, just a year ago, Gloria Allred trotted out a woman who falsely accused Trump.
That's right.
Now, I find it highly insulting that Ivanka Trump wants to back the accusers of Roy Moore when Gloria Allred backed someone who attacked her daddy.
Yep.
Now, that says a lot about little Miss Trump, who's got her own little agenda going.
She might get slapped.
I think she should go sit down and shut up and leave the governing to daddy.
Yep. And you see the stepson now of the one lady.
He says she's a no good,
She's
low down
lying, baby.
liar.
Outright lying.
Yep.
Yep.
And when you look at it, they've played this card. We just mentioned 2 other incidents. They've played this card so many times. I've been watching. I'm friends with a couple of people in Alabama. I have yet to see any post that have not said anything good,
Now,
bad about
Yes.
Roy
here
Moore.
is the other side of the coin. Congress paid $15 million to silence their own sexual harassment claims.
Oh no, they don't do any of that.
Democrat California Jackie Spire testified this week that she is aware of 2 members of Congress, a Republican and a Democrat, who currently are in service, whose staffers say sexually assaulted them. She did not name them, but it is interesting how leaders of the Congress and the Senate paid $15 million in hush money to the accusers to keep this quiet. So Mr. McConnell is not exactly clean himself. And let us, folks, not forget that bard of truth and wisdom, Teddy Kennedy, who left somebody who left somebody in the middle of their swimming lessons to drown in a car in a place called Chappaquiddick. and was elected to the Senate multiple times.
Did he have the ethics board?
Wait, Jim. He actually contacted the Russians to try to undermine Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
Actually called them. And yet, nothing is negatively said about the son of a bootlegger and a Nazi backer who has put all sorts of gazillions in tax shelters, thereby, defying our tax code, of course.
Yes.
You just can't make that type of stuff up.
And I am assured that there's good and bad on both sides, and there's probably charges that are valid on both sides of the aisle. But I can tell you this: the liberals have been using this sex card all the way back to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
It's they are the best at it. They will find these people, they'll pay them to lie, okay, and they do it better than anybody.
Here is the actual article on the Gateway Pundit. Darrell Nelson, stepson of accuser Beverly Young Nelson, said the allegations are all lies, and he is baffled by the timing of the sexual advancement claims. Voices his strong support for the judge. And Nelson held the press conference with Gloria Allred, and this is pretty interesting because
Gloria? Oh, Gloria.
Moore offered allegedly to drive her home from work one night and got her in a car and started groping her and doing things. Well, back then there were no child locks, so if you need to get out the car, you could. And here it says that he has known this woman who was married to his father for many years, and he does not believe she's being honest about this. And he has very, very interesting questions for his stepmother. Why did you wait so long? You said you were a teenager, but here it is now years later. All of a sudden you bring this up when we voted him into the house and you're trying to get him taken out, and I'm going to find out why. Nelson later acknowledged he knew he was going to get backlash from the family, and he concludes by offering a statement on behalf of Judge Moore, backing Judge Moore. Very, very interesting.
I mean,
Very interesting indeed.
not surprising to me.
No.
And what you have to tie this all into, it all comes back to the one world government.
Now, here is another Gateway Pundit article who says that Lee Kaufman claims she was 14 years old when that 32-year-old Roy Moore made those advances on her. Well, Miss Kaufman's got more than a few skeletons and ghosts and goblins in her closet. Let's see now. She has been divorced 3 times, filed for bankruptcy 3 times, and has reportedly claimed several pastors at various churches made sexual advances at her.
So she's a professional?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. A paid
Oh,
accuser?
yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Paid accuser, yeah.
Yep.
It's like,
And she
hey,
says...
I'm broke. I need some money.
She says that she did not share the story about Moore because of the trouble in her life. And she's living in Arizona with the second husband when she got into bankruptcy, had $139,000 in unpaid claims brought by the IRS, paid a fine for driving a boat without lights, charged with a misdemeanor for selling beer to a minor when she was working at a convenience store. It just gets better and better.
These are
and
all very
better.
reputable.
What a lovely young lady.
It just gets better and better.
How about, you brought up the subject a while ago. You have more on this?
Oh, you can go ahead and go down that one. This is a never-ending story.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
This is
Well,
deep.
you brought up the excessive overtime pay.
No.
7 years ago, WVUE-TV raised questions about a huge amount of overtime pay State Police Trooper Darrell Thomas was raking in. But then our good friend, Superintendent Mike Edmondson, assured the New Orleans station that Thomas' hours were on the up and up.
Which is a falsification of public documents, which is a felony, and payroll fraud.
I can assure you, every one of those hours he put down, he worked, Edmonds said at the time. However, a recent investigation, by WVUE revealed troubling discrepancies between the hours Thomas has claimed and the amount of time he appears to actually have been working. The trooper was paid $240,000 last year. $147,000 of which was overtime, according
And not
to the
a single
report.
charge ever filed.
He received the same eye-popping sum in overtime the year before. Man, I really went the wrong profession.
I was in the wrong agency.
That's a
I
hard
was
work.
starving
So-
over at probation and parole.
But state police brass apparently failed to take notice, even though Thomas, for years, had been among the state's highest-paid officials.
Well, they didn't take notice because they were all doing it too.
Exactly. Before being suspended with pay this week, Thomas has been assigned to the agency's Kenner-based Troop B, where he worked as a motorcycle patrolman.
But Jim, they can suspend him. Hell, he made $240,000 last year. If he didn't spend it all, he's got more money than all of us combined.
Good
But
for a
he
couple
has a
years.
Jaguar or a Corvette in his garage.
Oh, at least.
During a months-long investigation, WVUE, which surveilled Thomas coming and going from his home, oh God, they were surveilling him. Kazin said that each time the station filmed Thomas, it noted differences between the time he actually worked and the hours he put on his timesheet.
How you say that? Liar, liar, pants on fire.
The discrepancies amounted to thousands of dollars in overtime. Thomas claimed for a time he actually spent at home. In one instance on Labor Day, Thomas purported to have worked 16 hours when WVUE's cameras observed him at home from 11:10 a.m. to 5 p.m. of that shift.
Boy, that was a heck of a stressful shift. He probably got to watch a little football and drink a beer while making that overtime. You know, we know what, Jim? Jim, I got it. We're going to start calling this lazy boy overtime because they're sitting in the lazy boy recliner when they're in their trooper uniform, drinking a beer when they're supposed to be on the road.
Well, now here's the one you'll like. 2 days later, he again billed conference in San Diego. The controversial trip prompted the early retirement of Edmondson. Should have been jail. And recently led to the demotion of 2 high-ranking troopers. It goes on and on. This LACE program is now under scrutiny.
Right?
We-
I can't understand why.
Now.
You know.
Yeah.
These $240,000. A state trooper.
And you and I can barely scratch an existence out.
Yeah. And you know, crime does pay.
Yes, it does.
Really?
Especially if you're wearing a blue uniform with that hat.
I mean, after you told me what those guys get for sitting along the highway, I thought,
Now, Jim, let's go back to Groper Joe.
oh yes, our buddy.
A former Secret Service agent testified on condition of anonymity to the Gateway Pundit that Groper Joe was such a handful, or I should say caught such a handful, that the VP Christmas get-together at his house had to be canceled because all of the agents and politicians' wives and children, females, would get groped. Says that he would mess with every single woman or teen female. It was horrible. The Secret Service agent once got suspended for shoving Biden after he grabbed his girlfriend, let's just say, on the chest while the couple was taking a photo with him. So a Secret Service agent actually put hands on Groper Joe for putting his hands on his girl in front of him, and the agent got suspended.
Yeah.
And they got photographic proof. And this is the yo-yo they want to run in the next presidential election. Groper Joe.
Yep.
Roper Joe.
I wonder if he's going to take lessons from Bill Clinton. You know?
Oh, he
The
probably already
situation
did.
got so heated that the source told Cassandra Fairbanks that others had to grab the Secret Service agent to stop him from hitting the then vice president. Well, folks, all I can say is this. I'm not a master martial artist, but I can say this. If you're within arm's reach and I decide to put one upside your head, they'll be picking up the body off the floor because I'd have probably slugged the sucker and they'd have got him after I hit him. I think I'd have got him. Additionally, the agent claims that Biden would walk around the VP residence naked at night. Groper Joe naked. He said that the men on duty would frequently stand in front of the female agents and Navy women that were present like guardians, and sometimes they would have to make up reasons to get the women away from where he was. And the agent then said that they were specifically concerned about women in the Navy. They were not allowed to disobey him at all, but they would make up excuses to get them out of the clutches of Groper Joe.
Unbelievable. How is this guy
Amazing.
still walking around?
I mean,
And Biden would often swim nude in front of the female Secret Service agents every weekend.
10 minutes.
That's just sad.
It's,
Sad, sad.
And they have a montage of women here that are
That's the
being
one I
groped
sent
on film.
Yep.
it's like,
Here we go.
Yep. Yeah, it's actual groping. You can tell.
it's like,
Would you say he's quite a handful? Probably two.
I would think.
you know,
Sure, it's a handful.
Yeah.
I hope those women take showers after he's done. There's no telling where those hands have been. Who knows? It's amazing.
it's like,
That was the Vice President of the
Wow.
United States.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
former vice
Yeah.
president.
Former.
Under an illustrious great
Who's
president.
considering running in 2020? All right.
Yeah, he'll only be 78 years old or something.
Yeah. The,
Well,
ol-
obviously his hands still work.
the oldest groper in the White House.
The oldest groper in the White House. Fingers are kind of.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, people, you can't make this stuff up.
You can't.
I mean, I always say, I had a rude awakening 5 or 6 years ago. When I started really, Tom and I, and God bless Tom. I mean, I miss the guy. It's a shame what happened. And people do, I did get several emails and a phone call on Tom, just to give you a little report. Tom's not going to be back with us. He didn't take care of high blood pressure and now suffered the consequences. What is it, the whole left side gone of his brain. He is breathing on his own in the nursing home, but unfortunately, unless an absolute miracle happens, Tom's not going to be back with us. And that's
Jim, here's more
sad.
information on that yearbook thing. There were two different colored inks. The handwriting expert says the handwriting didn't match. Roy was not the district attorney at the time, but an assistant district attorney, which they got wrong. The restaurant mentioned did not exist in that year. The yearbooks were distributed in August, not December, which was verified with the school. And the woman said that she voted for Trump, but her voter roll says that she's inactive. So this is just 6 lies of the 17 that were found on this particular liar.
Yeah.
But I mean, when all this came out, the very first thing I thought, what a bunch of BS. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it's sad. One of the things that you don't look at here is, what are we teaching our young people?
That people were guilty just by suggestion.
Yeah. I mean, and then you look at all these rhinos and people, McConnell especially.
Yeah. Well,
I can't stand that goofy looking thing.
Mitch really needs to go away.
Huh? Oh.
Mitch McConnell really
Jim,
needs to go away.
Here's one that I have to mention that I saw on Facebook that's pretty good. In an effort not to offend people, the great white shark will be officially renamed the average Caucasian shark.
Oh, yeah.
You with that?
What's
Oh, yeah.
next?
Now, folks, let's bring up a real pervert, other than Groper Joe. Rush is covering the trial of Democratic Senator Menendez of New Jersey.
Yeah, who's going to get off?
Well, actually, he got off several times with underage hookers and a few
Yep.
other people.
Yep.
But
I knew that.
Here we go.
I said that. As soon as I said it, I knew it.
the truth shall set you free. It was just a load that left, but hey.
Almighty.
But the interesting
I hope
part-
the FCC's not watching.
The interesting part about this is that Senator Mitch McConnell has not said a peep. Ted Cruz has not said a peep.
Not a word.
Exactly.
Neither has anybody else, and this guy has actually been charged with it, is on trial for it,
Yes.
and everything with Roy is simply an allegation.
Yes.
There's never been charges or anything.
Nope.
Yet they won't talk about the real criminal who's been busy. Now that makes you wonder if Menendez is one of the people that they're talking about up there in the Senate who's been busy. Would you say that he's been busy behind the scenes?
Definitely.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
But remember, Pelosi has Alzheimer's. If he groped her, she won't remember.
Plus, she has Botoxic.
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 I don't know. I don't think Menendez would have groped her because her ears touch in the back. It's kind of unseemly. It confuses his depth perception in the dark.
Oh man.
You know, he might like Frederica Wilson because he can always find her in the dark with that glowing cowboy hat.
Yeah, I want to, before we leave the air here in a few minutes, Trevor Loudon tomorrow night. Y'all need to come out.
Yes,
Be
you
there
do.
or
Yes,
be
you do.
square.
I mean, it's
Yep.
just, this guy has spent 30 years researching this, and from all indications, from the people that heard him speak in New Orleans on Monday night, it was just a dynamite program. We'll have a short 3-minute, if you're listening, Mark, 3 minutes tomorrow night to talk about what we spoke about the first hour on the non-UNESCO deal. But Trevor, this is,
You got to come out.
you gotta be
Just
there.
gotta come
He's
out.
gonna have his books, he's gonna have some DVDs, and the stuff. I mean, you can look up Trevor Loudon on YouTube, and it's a couple of really good videos on there. One is America Under Siege. It's about 29 minutes, I think.
An appropriate title.
And yes,
Yeah.
and by Antifa. And the other one is a powerful speech that he gave at CPAC.
Yep.
Listen, it behooves you to get out, bring your friends, tell people. I mean, you have to understand it. It takes a lot to draw these people just to Louisiana alone. And to get a person of this stature, this is going to be crazy.
Let me just take a second to thank Jim and Brent for letting me sit in again tonight. I will be heading back in a couple of days to Arizona, and the people here at the station, the people with AOC, have been absolutely phenomenal to me, and I really appreciate these two fellows, and y'all keep listening to them because they're down on the right track.
We feel sorry for you because we have our own demons to deal with here, and you've got McCain and Flake.
Yes, yeah, those
I
are
mean,
demons enough. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we
I
got
can honestly.
Cassidy and Higgins. And,
I can honestly say we don't have anybody of the stature who actually lit a carrier on fire, killed 150 sailors, and maimed about 150 more.
Yeah.
And then gave up the flight times and the flight information to the Viet Cong while in the prison camp.
Yeah.
Then divorces his then paralyzed, wheelchair-ridden wife who was overweight in his opinion,
Yeah.
and marries, isn't it the Anheuser-Busch air lady who's hot and blonde and rich, so he can feather his own little hat and
Yeah.
go to be a senator?
Yes,
You
sir.
know,
It's a shame.
it's rare that we get
It's a
scumbags of such caliber.
Yes.
You
yes,
know?
Yeah.
We don't really have anybody that can
We
compare to that. I mean,
homegrow 'em.
And
We homegrow
some
'em.
people still honor him today, and
I
for the life
mean,
of
I
him.
don't know. I mean, Edwin Edwards was pretty colorful, but he didn't set an aircraft carrier
Yeah.
on fire. That takes
I
rare
could never
talent.
understand Edwin Edwards owning a ranch in Texas and being the governor of Louisiana. I never got that one. Listen, people, God bless. See you tomorrow night. And I didn't mention, it's at the Robichaux Recreation Center.
Across from Cox Communications on Eras Landry.
On Eras Landry. You want more information, just go to our website, acadianapatriots.com.
Or better yet, show up.
Yeah,
Show up.
definitely show
Yeah.
up.
Solve the mystery.
It'll be
Show
a
up.
fun time,
Yep.
but God bless all of you. I mean, thanks for watching. Hopefully we enlightened you tonight.
Thanks again, folks.
All right, later. Do I have to say any more? He keeps waving his hand like this. I
Thanks
don't know.
again.
Do we have 5 seconds?
Thanks
Remember,
again.
folks, keep your powder dry and keep up the training. Antifa is coming for you.
See you tomorrow night, everybody.
All right.
Yes.
Get out there.
Tomorrow night.